Welcome Nitty Gritty this week. We are here with Brian Hawkins. Tiny house, everything.
Everything, man. Everything.
I told him
Not a tiny guy, by the way.
No.
Like, I have a lot of respect for you building tiny houses because you're only an inch shorter than me.
It gets interesting for sure because when you're walking around a loft, and I have people that we build them for that are 5'5", 5'6",
Right.
and they want the same space in their loft to be able to walk around because they're a little bit shorter.
Wow.
So when I have to put a loft down at 6 feet and I'm crouched down as I'm working on something, it could be a long day.
Nope. I couldn't do it.
I told him I felt bad because had a meeting this morning for our house, and knowing this interview is coming, like the whole time I'm just like, I don't need that. Gosh, I don't need to do that.
Dude, people do that all the time. Like if you watch tiny house shows, you're just like, I don't even need a house. Like I don't need a garage. I can just live in my van the rest of my life. I'll be golden.
Those in my gym that I'm building, and my closet.
But I'm really curious, like for people who don't know, like what is like the tiny house movement? I mean, so his Instagram is the tiny house movement, right?
Yeah, the Instagram page is Tiny House Movement. The movement in general, so your typical grassroots, hardcore tiny house people are 400 square feet or less on wheels. So that's kind of the norm throughout the industry of what people are building all over the country. And then you have some people that, I mean, because it's a relative term, right? Like tiny to me is different than to somebody else.
Yeah.
I have 4 kids, and I need one for my wife and one for me and my kids. Like we can't all fit in a tiny house, right? But for some people, it's 400 square feet. For some people, it's 800 square feet. But the typical term that if you ask your typical TV show or Tiny House Nation or anything else, it's 400 square feet or less on wheels.
Okay.
So tiny. How come there's always like a rule, right? With things like this, like that's not a tiny house. It's like 450 square feet.
I can't tell you how many times, if I post something that's over 400 square feet, half the comments are, yeah, that's awesome. Not a tiny house. I'm like, why does that matter?
Oh, man, the
it's
tiny
an
house
awesome
police.
home. Just enjoy the awesome house.
It's so true.
So tiny
and that's in everything, I feel like, right?
Yeah.
It's just always like the
Especially
snob
right
of
now.
every movement.
Yeah.
They're fanatical, man. Like tiny house people they're all in.
Wow.
So now where are you from? You're wearing a Dodgers hat.
I grew up an hour and a half north of LA in Bakersfield. So I am an LA sports guy. Those are my teams. I've lived up here. I came up here to go to the Y, and I've been up here for 16 years.
Upgrade.
Yep.
I
would not.
Bakersfield
Hey,
people,
man,
but it's a rough place.
You don't have to convince me. There's a reason I haven't moved back. Like I'm not going back.
There's a great country music station there, though.
Yeah.
One of the best I've ever heard. I wish I could remember it.
Palace, man.
Oh, dude.
KUZZ 107.
Isn't it like Dwight Yoakam, Merle Haggard? Like there's a bunch of really good country to come out of there, but
Garth Brooks proposed to his wife there.
Which one?
In Bakersfield. What's her name? Trisha.
Trisha?
Yeah.
Oh, the real one.
The
She's
real
the
one.
second one.
Yeah.
But she's the real one.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's
Garth
pretty
is
cool.
a legend.
Yeah. Bakersfield is country music, NASCAR, and agricultural land.
It's crazy. I've taught some barbecue classes there. I mean, so I grew up in Long Beach, Huntington Beach, California. But the people are awesome in Bakersfield. Like it has a total rural feel. I mean, it's big, but kind of a down home type of place. So I love the people, but it is kind of a hot.
I mean, there's nothing to do there, right?
Yeah,
like everywhere you're going is an hour and a half to 2 hours away from there.
Right.
But yeah.
Wow.
So like growing up tiny house, I wasn't around back then. So I mean, you probably just like.
No, man, tiny homes was never. I mean, nobody grows up thinking they're going to do anything in tiny homes for a living, right? Like that wasn't really a thing. Growing up there, my dad actually worked, which most people do in Bakersfield, in the oil industry, one way or the other, right? Like for Texaco or Chevron, there's oil derricks all over town. That's really what they're known for. So I got into geology. I was going to be doing surveying, working for my dad and his company.
Okay.
And then when I came back from my mission and was a freshman at the Y, he sold his company, and I decided I don't want to go live in Vernal to try to make 40
I'd
grand
rather
a year,
live in
right?
Bakersfield than Vernal.
Just personally,
200% more.
So I decided if I was going to stay here, I got into sales and wound up at Vivint for almost a decade.
Oh, really?
And then my brother-in-law was building a tiny home for a friend of his.
When were you at Vivint? What years?
I was there until 2000. And it was 6 years ago. So from 7 to 14.
We were all there probably the same. We were at Pinnacle.
Same time.
Okay.
We hated you guys because you had way better parties.
Dude, I knocked doors for Pinnacle in 2003.
Wow.
That summer,
Where?
Bakersfield.
Okay.
Wow.
That was
the only summer I worked for
That
Pinnacle.
was my first summer. I was in
Really?
Chicago 2003.
Okay.
So small world.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were doing the summer sales thing.
Yeah, and then I did phone sales. So I did inside sales at Vivint as well.
Okay.
And my brother-in-law was building one for a friend of his that had just a couple hundred acres up in Montana that he hunted on every year, and really just wanted a place to bug out, like just some random off-grid place that he can go to 2-3 times a year. So my brother-in-law was building it for him. He was a general contractor, and I was just helping him put the flooring in. We started having random people walk into the shop because we had to have the bay door open because it was so hot, and we were just down here in Vineyard. And people kept showing up for no reason, just asking us what in the heck we were doing. And so we both got crazy. I started doing a little research and realized there's not enough people building tiny homes.
Had your brother ever done it before?
No, he'd built homes, but
Yeah.
not tiny homes on trailers, right?
Okay.
So we both got crazy and convinced our wives to let us quit our jobs and build tiny homes. Like it was literally just a complete out of left field deal. And everybody I knew obviously called me crazy. Everything was insane, right? And my wife included. Like everybody thought it was insane. It still is nuts. By all means, it's different.
So what did you see? I mean, what about that made you go, all right, yeah, I'm all in?
For me personally, it was affordable housing. Like I was lucky enough to never be in a situation where, like I didn't have a place to go, right? Like if worse came to worse, I could always move back in with my parents or something, right? But I knew so many people that were struggling to be able to get a starter home, an apartment, anything. Affordable housing just, it's even worse now than it was then. Right. But I saw it being such an enormous issue, and I wanted to find a way to help. And that seemed like the most logical way for me was to start building tiny homes on wheels. And we were shipping them all over the country. People everywhere just we didn't build the same home twice. Like it was awesome. But that was what I saw was an opportunity to help people, as crazy as it sounded and looked, to be able to get affordable housing for something that they didn't have to spend $300,000 on a starter home.
And so was there, I don't know how to, like, almost like a template, or was there like steps of the typical tiny house? This is what it has inside of it. Or was it all just trial and error?
It's still kind of the Wild West. They've just recently, over the last 2 years, come out with an actual code. So there's an IRC, the International Residential Code, for what you build your houses to. For homes on wheels, that didn't exist. You were either building an RV, so you had an RVIA certification or code that you built to, right? Or you had your residential home. But for building a stick-built home on a trailer, there was no such code. There was no such thing. So everybody was doing their own thing. You were doing everything you can to build as closely to a residential code as you could. But for a rise and run in your stairs, for example, if you were to build the average residential home, your stairwell would take up the entire house.
Right.
So you have ladders, you have all kinds of little things that you do to create more space in less than 400 square feet. So it's
almost like the ultimate game of Tetris. Like going on vacations, I love packing a van. It's like, it's weird. Like loading the dishwasher, packing the van, like get everything. Okay, how am I going to get this all in there? Like it's like a fun challenge. I'd imagine it's kind of similar. They probably like, here, I want all of this stuff in my house, and you first go, not a chance.
Yeah.
And then you go, all right, how do I do that? And you start just like putting stuff in all these places.
The average person shows up and they're downsizing from 2,000 square feet or 1,500, whatever it is. And they come in, they're like, all right, I want 2,000 square feet worth of stuff in 300 square feet. Oh, you're like, man, that's fantastic. I would love to live in that fantasy land, but that's just not going to exist. Like physics is still a thing, right? So it's a lot like playing a game of Tetris. Everything has to be multifunctional. Where your stairs go, if there's storage there, if you can fit appliances under there, where you can hang clothes, where a closet can be, what type of appliances, what type of furniture fits, how much counter space you have. Do you have a workspace? Like it's a lot of fun, but it can be really stressful because some people have a very specific idea of what they want because they draw it out on a napkin or something, and it makes sense to them. But fitting all that in a real space is tough sometimes.
How do tiny house snobs feel about slide outs?
They're very particular about it. Like they're not into slide outs. But there is a company in Canada, Zero Square does that. Like that's all they do. Are tiny houses
what I'm
with
talking
slide outs.
about. Gotta have the pop outs, man.
Their biggest problem was until about 2 years ago, it was really tough to insulate those. Like RVs aren't built to be lived in full time, right?
Right.
Even though so many people do that.
I'm gonna say you can do it. Just takes a little more propane.
Yeah. It happens all over the country, but legally, there's not a single place in the country you can live in your RV full time.
Wow.
Nowhere. Like even in an RV park or anything else, you have to move every 90 days. You have to technically go on vacation, move your RV for 10 days, and then come back.
That is so stupid. That's really a thing?
That is a thing.
Man, free country, my ASS.
Yep.
I'm sorry. There are so many dumb rules. Listen, if I own the KOA and someone wants to live there all year round, I'm in. If they're paying their bill, let's go.
Yeah.
You're just keep it clean. That's really a strange rule.
Yeah. But that's how, I mean, that's why tiny homes are so, I think, polarizing personally. There's two reasons. One is where to put them legally is still a problem, right?
Right.
The other is how to finance them.
Right.
Because there is no standard banking institution that looks at it because there's not enough data saying, I mean, this has only been around, realistically, it's been around for about 15 years, this tiny house movement. They don't have enough data to say, I know what that's worth 5 years from now. So a typical note to lend on it doesn't. People are going out and getting RV loans or anything they can to try and get one.
This tiny house movement is exposing a lot of problems in our country.
Yeah.
Think about it, right? This is supposed to be capitalism, free market, innovate. Oh, there's not enough data. We don't know how to lend you money.
Yep.
Innovation, we can't do that. Bureaucracy, God, it's driving me crazy.
You're in a good mood today.
I'm not in a good mood. Actually, you're striking all these little chords right now. So anyway, sorry.
So why are they built on wheels? I mean, is the intent to move them?
Yeah, there are a lot of people that still travel with them, even if it's only a couple times a year. Most people don't actually live like nomads. They're not just on the road 24/7 from place to place. There are a handful of people that do, and you can see that all over social media. I mean, there's a lot more people, especially now after COVID. Like living in an RV is really appealing to people.
What do they weigh on average?
A tiny home built on wheels versus an RV, there's a big weight difference. So like tiny homes, because they're stick built, typical residential materials, 14 to 20,000 pounds. I mean, it's
a big old boy to pull.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like I have a 3/4 ton diesel, and the heaviest one that I've pulled across the state of Utah anyway, I think was 19,000 pounds.
And can they handle being moved around quite a bit?
Yeah, they can. I mean, they're built for that.
Right.
But I would recommend having at least a 1-ton dually,
Right.
or even just getting a semi and pulling that thing around.
Well, you're saving plenty of money. Get the King Ranch Platinum dually, 1 ton.
If you're planning on moving around, like why not just buy a really nice RV? Is an RV more? This is super. Is an RV way more expensive?
No, it's a great question. What's hilarious is a lot of people look at it as a price per square foot thing, right? Like tiny homes for the average custom tiny house builder in the U.S., they average like $200 to $250 a square foot. Which like looking at the numbers, you're like that's ludicrous. Like who's paying $200? You get a high end RV, man. It's $1,500 a square foot.
Is it really?
Yeah. If you go get a Tiffin motorhome or Jayco or anybody else, like there's some, and they're gorgeous by all means. They're phenomenal, but they're $450 to $500,000.
Well, I had no idea. I had no idea that they're that much
I
money.
saw a pro snowboarder. I did a catering job up at Mount Baker like 3 years ago. And I mean, pretty famous snowboarder. I think it's Josh Davis. Anyway, he rolled up with the tiny house.
Yeah.
Put it in the parking lot. This is a big contest. Like people come in from all over the world. And he had a full-blown tiny house in the parking lot. It was so cool.
So do you have to like find a trailer park where you can like tap into water and power?
You can't. You can be completely off grid. We've done quite a few that are completely off grid, but it is the most expensive part of building a tiny house is a solar system, water tanks, even a toilet, man. Like your regular toilet in your house or any residential commercial toilet,
Right.
a couple $100 usually, maybe $250,
That's a lot
$300.
of weight too.
Yeah.
But if you go get a composting toilet, they start at $600. You go get an incinerating toilet that literally burns everything for you, $4,000, $5,000, just for the toilet. Yeah.
Yeah, it's worth it though.
How often?
Burn it all
how
up.
often are people doing those?
No empty tanks.
I mean, half the ones that we do are off grid, completely
Really?
off grid. Yeah. Just because people want the opportunity in case they want to go somewhere, they want to just literally be able to pick up and move whenever they want.
I dig it. That's way better than a bomb shelter.
Yeah.
Because you never know where you can go, right? I kind of dig that.
So is that?
I want one.
So are most of your clients, are they treating this as a vacation, a second home type of deal, or are they mainly like this is our living, everyday living?
I would say about 80% of them are living full time, 20% are rental properties.
Okay.
So they're what's happened in the last year, especially
that's
because
brilliant.
of Instagram, social media. I've traveled the country with my family, taking my kids with me, and we visit tiny house resorts. People that are just renting out tiny homes.
My dad just did one. They went down and played in southern Utah in golf. Was it
up.
Kanab, I think?
Oh yeah,
Love Kanab.
Like, he's like, there's this tiny house community, so we all just rented a tiny house.
That's really cool, actually. Wow.
it's awesome. They're the
That
same
would be a
size.
pretty good investment, actually. You park 10 of those bad boys somewhere cool with Airbnb and everything nowadays. That's really interesting.
So, really good buddy of mine, he bought a property in Hawaii. He redid the
brilliant.
house and then put a tiny house on it because he didn't have land next to it. He's like, just the money, like from one or the other pays for, like, it's
Crazy.
There's a reason affordable housing is such an issue. Like here in Utah, for example, where I live in Lehi, I can't put one in my backyard. I can't rent it out. I can't do anything because you can't have an accessory dwelling, right?
Yeah.
And then if you do have an accessory dwelling, it has to be attached to your permanent structure. So I'd have to literally add an addition to my house to have something like that.
The Rage Against the Machine song's playing in my head right now. Home of the free, land. What is it? Home of the brave, land of the free. Whoever told you that is your enemy. Remember that song? That's what Lehi is.
It's
See,
but
I'm
there's
getting all riled up today.
there.
The rules are ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, crazy. You can spend all this money on this awesome, amazing tiny house, and I can't Airbnb it in Lehi on my own property?
No.
Oh, I can kiss my ASS. There it is again. It's ridiculous. I'm kind of, come on. I'm just having some fun. I know people are laughing right now. They're like, whoa, he really is in a bad mood.
But
I'm really not.
but
It's
he's
just, but it is kind of crazy.
but you're spelling out ASS.
I know usually I say it, but I know I'm going to say it 3 or 4 more times. So if I just spell it out each time,
gotta save
then
money.
Brent doesn't have to beep it. Anyway. Sorry, Brian.
Yeah, no, you're good, man. It's nuts because logically you would just think, as a state of Utah in particular, the numbers are way worse in other states. In Utah, we're 45,000 units behind where we need to be for the average person that works a minimum wage job to have to work less than 90 hours a week just to
Holy
afford rent.
crap.
which is why you see so much of these multifamilies popping up everywhere, trying to become affordable. But I mean, still, those are
But those are the people that are keeping this type of thing down because they don't want their. It's the whole reason why they still have oil.
Yeah, it's a still. Everybody's going to pump that bad boy out, and it makes sense. Like vertically, like the best use of land, right, is to go vertical, build 3-4 stories high because I'm going to get a lot more money out of that. I get a lot more property, a lot more homes to sell. Versus a tiny home community, you have your own walls. You're not sharing a wall with anybody. You might be close to someone, but you have your own little slice of heaven, right? Like your own little piece of land.
So what's the difference between a tiny home and a trailer?
The way they're built is very different. So trailers are light. Same thing with RVs. Like they're built to be light and to be traveled with as much as
We
possible.
say manufactured home, by the way.
Yeah.
I say double wide.
Dude, mobile homes.
That's in country songs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which there's plenty of. Right? My wife and I actually managed a mobile home park in Provo, right next to the mall. My freshman year, we lived in Crestline Estates in there, 115 mobile homes in there. And living in that,
Well,
we had
that's all the rage right now.
Yeah.
That's the new Craftsman, I heard.
Everyone's trying to buy mobile home parks. Holy smokes.
Oh, mobile home parks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
It is
okay.
a fantastic investment.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah. And they're not on the market for more than a day.
No.
I don't know about property managing those bad boys.
That's why
friends
you
grew
pay
up in those
you pay
spots.
random college kids to live on site and do it all for you.
That's what
There you go.
happens.
It's like storage units.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's exactly what it is.
Wow.
You give them a house and then they manage it.
Yeah. That's what we did. I mean, they paid for our utilities and our cell phone bill, but other than that, we had a free place to live while we were going to school.
Man, this is fascinating stuff.
So,
Okay.
is a trailer and a tiny house, are they technically competition or no?
Yeah,
And
and
I don't
there's
know
a
if
place for
competition
both.
is the
Like
right thing.
they're both phenomenal. It just all depends on how you want to use it. If you're living in it full time, the reason tiny homes really became a thing is because you're doing a traditional build. It just happens to be on wheels. So the look of it is very different. It's not like an Airstream or anything else.
Feels custom.
Yeah.
Well, the inside of them are
They're amazing.
unbelievable.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, it's so much higher end than a manufactured home.
Yeah.
Or even an RV, because RVs, you can change some trim, right?
Yeah.
But it's not like you can change the layout, really. They've got a few plans, but I mean, sky's kind of the limit with, as long as you're under.
There's only so much you can do within
400 to 600 square feet.
Or
I'm going 1,200 on mine. They can kiss. No, never mind.
So when they go to how they're financed, like HUD is a whole thing, right? For
Right.
manufactured homes. So anything over 400 square feet gets into HUD code. So a lot of builders, even for your RVIA builds, they call them park model RVs. They max out at 399 square feet so that they don't have to sell them as HUD homes. So there's a lot of different ways to kind of go around that depending on which ones you want to build. Because park models are 10 and 12 feet wide. Your typical tiny home is 8 feet wide.
Right.
That's it. You're 8.5 feet, fender to fender. As insane as it is, any 16-year-old with a license can pull a typical tiny home down the road.
Wow.
Which is...
That's heavy.
Yeah.
That is not an
I've
easy...
seen them. I've seen tiny homes come off their hitch. I've seen them fall off the trailer itself.
You don't want that falling off the trailer.
No.
If they're that heavy.
No.
That's scary.
And if they're not balanced properly, like I've been cruising behind. I've been cruising behind one on a way to a show. The National Jamboree is what they were called at the time. Tiny House Jamboree in Denver, and I'm behind the
guy.
guy.
The Boy Scouts went out of business.
Yeah, it was great. And I'm seeing this guy take a corner, and the house, you see it just start to float right, and I think the whole thing is going to tip, but the house just comes off the trailer. Dude keeps driving, but it's just him in the trailer at that point, and the house comes completely off.
Whoa!
Luckily, he didn't hit anybody. It was just kind of off in the middle of a field. Like it was best case scenario for something coming off on the freeway. But
how are these insured?
Most people use RV insurance or car insurance because they do have a VIN number. Yeah.
So the insurance companies have figured it out.
Yep.
But the banks haven't.
Nope.
So are most people, I mean, you said they're trying to get RV loans. Is the number one reason people doing this for the affordability of it? I'd imagine there's the other side of it, which is the environment, right?
Yeah. The two biggest reasons are by far from a financial standpoint and your carbon footprint, right? Like people that have an environmental issue and they want to do well. The biggest saying with those grassrooters, if you're 400 square feet or less,
the snobs.
is to live simply so others can simply live. Like that's kind of the motto for that, is to take up less space, use less stuff, less material things, so that other people have.
You were way
more.
ahead of the game, if you think about it. How long have you been doing this?
6 years.
So I mean, this whole minimalist carbon footprint thing is just getting more and more popular.
Yeah.
And you guys did that before it became, a point of contention. We'll just say, like the lady at Whole Foods yelling at me because my truck's too big. She can suck it. But yeah, I mean, that's impressive. Did you have any idea that that's where it was going, or did you guys just build the tiny home?
We had no freaking idea what we were doing.
Wow.
None. Even when it came to like social media, right? Like when that became a thing,
right?
That only became a thing because we were one of the unique builders in the country where we had someone that can concentrate on the building side and someone that can concentrate on the marketing side. Everybody else, the builder, is wearing every single hat they have. They have to be in the shop 24/7. They don't have time to sell, to do any marketing, start social media channels.
You guys knew how to sell. I mean, that's what you were doing for.
Yeah, that was my background.
Right.
Was sales, right? So that's kind of why it made sense for us, or at least we thought. And then the demand was so much more than we ever would have imagined.
Wow.
In the very beginning, I was hustling down leads all over the country, scouring the most random websites, looking for people that were looking for tiny homes, just to try and bring them in the door. And then you build a couple, and that was it. That was all it took. Like people were just like, "Oh, sweet, that's awesome. You guys exist, sweet." And then they just started coming in.
What a story!
Well, what a cool way to have like a cabin.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, well, you're right. I mean, just being able to take, like, I think of Airbnb, like what you spend on those. Just going up to, like, it looks like we almost overlapped at Bear Lake.
Yeah.
I read on Instagram.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's some pretty sweet spots. I would totally park a tiny home as long as mine had double pop outs.
Yep.
And it was at least 1,400 square feet when it was all the way wide. But I mean, that you could do a whole, if you had the right pickup, you really could do a whole thing and really design it for what you like to do in those places. Yep. If you just want to travel around snowboarding, you could build it all around that type of storage and drying your equipment out. And the sky really is the limit, where with RVs and everything, you just have to kind of adapt to it. Right.
So like your main business, is it the construction of tiny homes? Is that like your main focus then?
Yeah. Social media was an afterthought like that. The whole being on Instagram, like I wasn't into social media at all. That was not my forte. I didn't want anything to do with it. I thought it was a huge waste of time. Being on there all day did not seem appealing to me at all.
Well, you were ahead of the game on one thing, at least.
Yeah. Yes. Dude, by no means am I brilliant. I'm not trying to convince anybody I'm the smartest guy in the room. That's for dang sure. But when I started getting most of the inquiries we got were through social media, and then I started to focus on that, and that kind of became my side of the business. And then a few years ago, my brother-in-law, who was my business partner, just didn't want to do it anymore. Like he just got so stressed because we were so overwhelmed and we could never keep up with demand. Literally, there's a line out the door, and we just could never build fast enough. Like in early 2000s when contractors can go wherever they want. Like just whatever job you want to be at for the next month, you could be there and then move on to something else.
Right.
So it was really tough to keep people at the right wage and build them quick enough to get out the door.
So like how many were you building?
We were doing one every 6 weeks. That was and we didn't build the same home twice. They were all custom homes. So
who designs them? Did you guys?
Yeah, my brother-in-law and I designed them.
Oh, wow.
So people would come with their ideas. They literally would bring in, like they would show up with screenshots of their Instagram page of, I like this kitchen, I like this flooring, I like this loft, I like this whatever. And then we would put it together in a CAD system. And
I mean,
I was gonna say, so you had to learn how to use CAD and everything.
oh yeah,
I mean, it's same thing like a normal house. You got to go to engineering, that kind of stuff too.
yeah. I mean, I don't have an engineering
no codes
degree.
back then. We're good.
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want. This will work.
So we would have a third-party inspection done on each home from the IRC code.
Oh, wow.
That was there just to make sure, because for us,
You didn't have to do that.
no, but our biggest fear was
That's really cool.
was exactly what we saw going to shows. Like the random people that were building in their backyard and show up and try and sell them. We're like, what are you doing?
You can't just ram set it down into the trailer. Hope it stays.
I'll put a couple of wedges on the back of that thing. It'll stick, man. Don't worry about it.
Put wood glue down. What the hell?
You got Flex Seal, man. Like it'll solve itself. Don't worry about it. It'll all figure itself out.
Oh man.
So you guys were just cranking him out. He's like, this is too much for me.
Yeah, he was in his mid 40s at the time and didn't want to be in the shop anymore. And I completely understand that. Like you don't want to be hammered or nailed 24/7 the rest of your life.
In small spaces.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's
that's
your height.
everything.
He's 6'5", right? Like
Nope.
just
No way.
we didn't have a single person working on houses that was less than 6'3". I don't know how that worked out for us, but that was
A tiny home builder by giants.
Well, dude, you're doing everything. You guys aren't just framers.
No, we did everything.
You're plumbers. You're insulators. You're installing the appliances. You're laying the carpet. Like,
So like, would you go?
that's a lot of stuff to know how to do. You say you're not a smart person.
Did you?
I beg to differ.
Would you guys do like prefab everything? Like,
No, so they were all literally custom homes. So we didn't have anything. The only thing that was prefabbed for us was the trailer itself. We would get those out of Denver and have them shipped in. Sometimes I'd go pick them up, stack them 2 or 3 high, depending on how many we had set to drive out.
Are these typically like double axle trailers? What?
Yeah, so normally they're triple axle.
Triple
We wound up building the really big tiny homes, if you will, right? That were 30 and
the
40
right
feet
ones.
long. Yeah.
That's what everyone should have.
I always tried to convince them to do goosenecks because I
Oh,
love
for
the
sure.
look, and just
That
hauling
was my
around
next
is so much
question.
easier.
For sure.
But some people really like a bumper pull until you pull around a 20,000 pound.
I'm gonna say
bumper
a bumper pull for that heavy, not a chance. Andrew, you know what we're talking about.
totally. I hate it when my kids pull on my bumper.
Yeah. Yep.
You guys are speaking my language.
I love it. I love it. Dualies. Wow.
So what happens then with your brother-in-law?
So he wanted to move on and do something else, and he went on into basically running a archery shop and hunting shop, that kind of stuff. And I started looking around. I kind of took my time for a couple of years and started looking around for other people that were manufacturing homes because I knew every builder in the country.
Yeah.
But nobody could scale. No one could build more than one home a month. Just it couldn't be done, right? So I started
Why?
looking around because nobody had the manpower.
Okay.
Or the money to carry the overhead.
Okay.
So for most of these guys, like when you're a tiny home builder and you're just trying to find cash buyers, it could be slim picking at the times.
And so if you had a cash buyer, how did you do that? Would they have to pay X amount up front? Did you just pay as you went? Or?
So normally it was 3 payments. You would put a third down to get started. You'd pay another third once you got to a certain progress point, and then the final third once it was done and shipped.
So you're still having to float that while you're building
Yeah.
it then.
Yep. Which is another thing that's tricky. And one of the other reasons why financing is such a big deal. Imagine how slow the housing market would be if everyone had to pay cash.
Oh, it'd be non-existent.
No.
But
It'd be over.
that's kind of where it is for tiny homes at the moment. We've been working on it for years, and there's a lot of people that say they're interested, but when it gets to the underwriting and the final, sign on the dotted line, I still haven't been able
You
to get
need
an actual
Elon
bank to do
Musk.
it. Yeah.
You need him to come in and help
We
out
need
if
someone
he's-
big time that has a crazy huge fund that's just like, yeah, all right, let's do it. It makes sense.
We need all these Vivint boys to come together and just create a little fund for you.
They don't have any money anymore. I'm just kidding. No, it is interesting because it's the way the world is going, right? It's like hybrids and electric cars,
Yep.
right? Like the tiny house thing is not new. I mean, I'd say most people have heard the term tiny house now.
Well, and I would guess the U.S. is probably the last of the game.
Maybe,
I mean, everybody
and
else in
that's
the world
true
has
too.
been living in small spaces forever.
Yeah.
That's a great point. But I mean, it can't be that hard to marry the worlds of RVs and small custom homes and just figure out a valuation on it.
Well, I mean, if I'm an RV manufacturer, I don't want tiny homes to have any space in my market.
Yeah, but I guess they still do pretty good.
Dude, right
gonna
now,
say.
RVs have never been hotter.
Really?
After COVID, I mean, what were you doing when you're stuck in your house? You're trying to plan out where you were going to go. The first
Fighting
place
with
you
my
could go.
wife. Just kidding.
aside from the obvious, right? Like yelling at our kids,
Right.
all that kind of
Hitting
stuff,
them.
right? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Everybody was trying to figure out where was the first place they were going to go
Right.
when they could actually go somewhere again. Which who knows if travel will ever be the same what it was, right? But a lot of people
I think
here
it will
domestically,
be. I think it will be. But regardless, I think if you look at things for the most part, especially in the urban areas, I would imagine, like I think of those cities like Detroit, or I don't know if you ever worked in like Chicago or any of those, really like beaten down communities that just homes are vacant, burning
Yep.
down. Like, what a great way to like Detroit. I know they have a lot of really cool like green initiatives to kind of like get the city going again. What a freaking cool way. Sell the property for $1,000 and put a tiny home on it, but let them have it there permanently.
yeah.
Like, what a really quick way to make a neighborhood like sweet again, vibrant again, right?
Are there a lot of tiny homes that are permanent, that they don't move?
Yeah. It's become a much bigger thing with people putting in tiny home communities for veterans, for homeless people, for all those kind of things, right? There's a lot of initiatives that are fantastic.
College kids.
Yeah. There are so many ways that affordable housing is needed. College kids are great. Even veterans and homeless people. And I mean, there's a million different reasons why you need a place to stay just to lay your head.
I
for
should
the
be
night.
able to like buy a property, flatten it out, pave it, right? With connections or not, right? Like,
Yeah, it can
gas,
be hooked
like
up to
water and
utilities.
sewer. Just a place where I can say, hey, for $20 a night or whatever,
Yep.
I'm a tiny house, tourist destination.
Yep.
Or I'm a tiny house parking lot for college students. Like, bring your tiny houses. I'm close to campus. I don't know. I just think that why wouldn't we want? Because they're good looking.
They're
They're pleasing to the eye, right? I don't know. I think there's
You
so
have hundreds
many
of people right now. I mean, I get hit up on Facebook and Instagram and every social media platform there is asking for a place to park a home. They want a tiny home, but they can't find a place to park it, and they don't want to live in an RV park or KOA, which I get.
That's crazy.
You
I
just
totally would buy a tiny house to put in my driveway just to Airbnb it.
Yeah.
Like, what a cool way to make some extra money. Wow. Or
And
just for my
there's-
in-laws to sleep in.
there's a lot of resorts, like, especially in southern Utah, man.
Andrew, it's a joke, okay? We're in-law, like we're brother-in-laws,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And so he's worried that my in-laws just heard that. I love my in-laws.
We'll cut
obviously.
that out.
It's just kind of a general joke in America, right?
Hey, man, I got in-laws. My wife's one of 11 kids. Like,
Holy moly.
11?
yeah, she's number 8 of 11.
screw
I'm
Christmas
5 of
guys.
5, and she's 8 of 11.
Holy crap.
Yeah, they're not getting a tiny house.
Mm.
What'd they say?
My in-laws?
Yeah,
Oh,
like
they hated
like
it.
when you were
They
like,
so they're
hated
down
it.
at- they-
Divorce him.
Yeah, I don't think they were quite that bad, but I'm sure they questioned it, and I'm sure she got calls from her sisters all the time, being like, "What is this?"
Tell us about that first time you kind of stuck your nose up at him. Just like, yeah, that's right.
Oh man,
Maybe like 2 years in.
Yeah. not them, not them in particular, because they never said anything to me directly. I'm sure
Well, they
said
never
stuff
do.
to my wife,
They never do. It's passive aggressive or through someone else.
but to a lot of guys that I used to work with, like at Vivint in particular, right? Like there was a lot of guys I used to work
You're
with.
like, listen, bro.
Yeah, obviously.
Listen, bro. Just buy a G-Wagon. Don't start the business.
Yeah.
No?
yeah, that's how it goes.
Totally. Or a Tesla nowadays.
But yeah. Dude, I drive a diesel truck. Like, so
I love
Tesla's
it.
not
Dude.
going to
You
be
and
my
I are
thing,
going to be
man.
good friends. I can tell. You're my type of people.
But they were all giving me crap. There's like literally everyone there laughed at me. Everyone laughed at me.
Wow.
Because it wasn't a thing, right? And everyone's like, if you're going to go start your own business, like go start a business, but do something someone's heard of before, not some random thing.
I would dare say this is one of the better stories we've had. Like, we've had some awesome stories on here, but as far as like getting ahead of the curve, I would say it's a bigger risk than most people take because nobody
Completely
knows
out of left
about it.
field. Yeah.
Right?
Even still today, we're like, I still don't quite know what tiny houses are. I know that they're tiny houses.
I mean, that's kind of the beauty of it, is that it is
Right.
still open to suggestion, right? Like, it doesn't have to be in one little box of what this really is,
You'll
and it
read
can
the
be something
history
different to
books.
you than everybody else.
Yeah.
Well, and I like that. I feel like a lot of the tiny house movements have a nonprofit like feel about them, which is awesome, right? But there's also that place for people that want to really build something cool and custom and their own, right?
Yeah.
So like, what's like an average cost of what you build?
Ours is about 65 to 75,000. The most expensive we've done is 140,000.
See, that's a lot cheaper than I thought they would be. Looking at the pictures,
So like, what takes it from 70 to 140? Because typically in a house, what does that is size, square footage,
jetted
Yep.
bathtub.
right? But like in such a small space, like what
Dude,
else?
it's
like,
been done. It's been
Oh,
done.
I know.
it's crazy that in 399 square feet, you can go from 70,000 to 140,000.
Off-grid is a big
Incinerator
part of
toilet.
that. So
Oh, okay.
solar systems, you're still spending, which here's the, solar is great. I'm just not a huge fan of them in tiny homes because you're spending 15 to 20 grand on a solar system. The reason you sign a 20-year PPA, a power purchase agreement for your solar system, is because that's usually how long it takes to recoup your cost on your house, right?
Yeah.
Right.
You're buying the same size solar system for a house that's less than a third of the size. You're using less than 15% of the kilowatt hours you'd use on your residential home, and you're still spending 20 grand on your solar system. The ROI is never going to pencil.
You know how sick of a diesel generator you can get for 25% of that?
Dude, we've done some. We had a family that a few years ago, it was a 40-foot long, 10-foot wide tiny home that was completely off grid. Had a 6.5 kilowatt system. Their house had burned down in Santa Rosa in the fires that were there.
No way.
So everybody there had 3 years to live in whatever you wanted on your property while you rebuilt your house. So they wanted a tiny house. So this was just a couple. Their kids were older, had already moved out, so it was just for them. But it was $120,000 tiny house. Like, it was completely off grid, huge solar system, huge backup battery. They still wound up doing a generator as backup to that as well on site. But we had to trench a couple of 100 feet for lines, for water lines and everything else for them, just to get to water tanks because they couldn't put in a septic. And I mean, it was nuts. But everything was custom. There was real wood throughout the entire house, the rafters, a 5-foot wide beam.
Wow.
You got skylights all over the place, tile everywhere, engineered bamboo flooring, a custom hood, copper hood for your range, like over your range. Like, just,
This is like, I mean,
yeah, I mean, it was crazy high end, right? But it was
What's
just
crazy to
important
me-
we should have like a parade of homes for tiny homes.
100%. And what's crazy to me is they're doing all of that.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
your
you don't-
house, you're going to have 50 different contractors come in to do each little thing, right? Like
Yep.
all houses that are built.
Yep.
The fact that you guys know how to do all of that, that's crazy.
I mean, a lot of it was trial and error, man. Like, it's not like you just walk in and you're like, all right,
Oh,
sweet,
for
that
sure.
turned out. It was
Well,
just
YouTube
perfect.
helps. But you're right. Like
yeah.
that, I mean, but after 6 years, I mean, I imagine in your own house now, it's like something breaks. You can just fix it.
Yeah. I definitely did not grow up that way. Like, my dad was that way. He could fix anything, right?
Right.
But growing up myself, like when I first got married, if something was wrong with the faucet, I was just like, oh man, that
Your
sucks.
wife thinks you're so hot, by the way. She loves it. They love it when you can fix stuff.
Sure.
Sorry, Jen.
Or
Sorry, Jen.
there's a lot of good things too. You don't fix it, but you can pay to fix stuff. That's hot too, right? It's just in the middle where you don't want to be.
Yeah.
It's no man's land. I think that's fascinating because that stuff is not easy to do, especially when you're talking about beamwork, finish carpentry. Like, you're not just doing.
Do you ever
You're
bring
not just
steps in?
framing. You're doing molding and everything else.
Everything. And I started helping him when we did that first one. I was helping him with the flooring. That was it. That was the only thing I felt confident enough in
Right.
that I could literally just tongue and groove, snap boring
Right.
boards in, and that was it. And then I wound up just little by little doing everything I could, and most of it was out of necessity. Like, we just needed to get something done,
Right.
so just jump out in the shop and
So like, how many people
Figure it out.
typically like? So you can do. So I come to you today. I'm like, hey, dude, I want a tiny house.
Mhm.
realistically 6 weeks from now I can have one?
No,
It depends.
You're in line, brother.
Right now
You're
it's
in line.
a little further out. It's about 4 months.
Okay.
Well, that's not bad.
But it depends on the kind you want. Like
Yeah.
I do my own still, and then I also got into shipping container homes and the park models. So I have a couple different ones that build for me as well.
Okay.
And then when I have time, I'll do like the projects I want to do myself.
Okay.
I'll do those myself.
But like how many people are working on a tiny house like to get it done?
Oh man. Typically the teams are about 8 to 10.
Okay.
Ooh, they'd have to get along.
Yeah,
With
and
a
you can
small
only-
workspace.
and you can only have about 4 people in there at a time.
Oh man.
Why is it so hard, or is it getting easier to get like a crew or people for those jobs?
Because it is still a little unknown. Like guys don't know. And when you're doing a jack of all trades, like when you do everything, guys want to be able to specialize in a field, right?
Yeah.
Like whether it's stonework or cabinetry or tile or flooring, whatever it is.
Well,
They want to
building
just-
the way it is right now, it's
Yeah.
probably hard to find good people because they're all so busy.
yeah, and everybody can just go do whatever they like. If they don't like the job they're on, they'll just walk away and go find something else tomorrow.
Oh, such
So
a crazy
true.
world. My dad's a general contractor, and I don't know how he put up with it this long.
It's nuts, but that's one of the other reasons I wanted to get into being able to mass produce more of a product line.
Right.
So I wanted to have every option because a lot of what I'm trying to do right now are affordable housing projects, not just one home at a time. So I have one in Moab, for example, I'm working on for 10 homes on 2 acres, 5 units an acre. They're going to be anywhere from 600 square feet to 1,200 square feet because in Moab in particular, they don't have a listing under 300 grand. House built in the 40s, less than,
gosh.
0.20 as far as acreage goes, and it's 410 grand.
Wow.
There's just,
This
And
is the type of thing where you go to like the middle of nowhere, Wyoming, buy 100 acres for 50 grand and just put a tiny house on it.
yeah.
And you just drive it up there when you want to go up there, right? You don't even have to like build a house on it,
Yeah.
right? And you already will have the right truck for living in Wyoming. Your big dually platinum F-350. But yeah, that's really interesting because but see, it'll get to the point where tiny houses are going to be the same way.
Oh, it already is. There's a lot of custom tiny house builders that are
Right.
charging 150 grand for what should be about 100.
Well, and I guess the other thing you're fighting are a lot of these codes, right? Where
Yep.
you can't stay on a property more than 90 days. So, I mean, if I roll this into my own property and hook it to a septic tank,
Mhm.
because it's on wheels, I can't leave it there permanently.
You can't rent it out. Like you could park it there, right?
Okay,
Like just
so
everybody
I can
parks
leave
their
it
RV
permanent.
or anything else. You can park it there.
Okay.
You just can't legally rent it out.
Okay, but I can live in it.
No, you can't live in it either.
That is some. Oh man, this is pissing me off.
If it's
Is that
if
like
it's your
that
primary,
everywhere?
a lot of places. Like if it's your primary residence, right? Like say you had your brother was going to move into your backyard.
Right.
You can't have someone living in that full time or as a rental.
What if it's the only house on the property? Like it is my primary residence. I own the property.
So you
Then a
can-
tiny home most
you own
likely
just the
wouldn't.
land.
Just the land. Yeah, I own the land.
Then a tiny home they wouldn't even let you put it on there.
Oh,
Like a tiny home on wheels. You can't pull up to a rent. Like I can't just go buy a lot, even in like Eagle Mountain or somewhere, right? Like I can't just go buy a lot, throw a tiny home on wheels on it, hook it up to utilities, and call it my permanent residence. Because it either doesn't
Freak.
meet minimum square footage, it's not built to IRC code, they don't have a way to inspect it because they don't know what code it's built to. The city doesn't get paid is really what it comes down
so
to.
really, what that means is none of us own anything. The government does.
Oh, here we go.
So mad. But it's true. Like if I pay cash, right? Cash for 5 acres somewhere. Let's say it's not even like. What if it's not even like a registered city? What if it's just like
If you get in the county, it's much easier to do. Yeah.
That's the trick, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. Huh.
What is like the financial side of it? So do they appreciate like how is there a big resale market
Yeah,
for
as
tiny
crazy,
homes?
And,
as
right?
crazy it is, they had like I looked at it, and I kind of treated it like an RV or a travel trailer or a car, right? Like it has a VIN number, it's on wheels. You're not really accruing mileage other than axles if you want to replace those. But I just assumed it was a depreciating model. Like I just figured it was like a car.
No
but
way.
we've only had a few people that have resold theirs. We've probably had 5 or 6, and everyone has made money on their home when they've turned around and sold it. Even though there's no land it's attached to, Nothing. It's just a house.
Well, especially with demand, right? I mean, if you have
Yep.
to wait a while to build one.
Yeah.
Is that what it is? It's just the cost to build them have gone up, so you can sell one.
The
is that
cost
what
has
it
gone
is?
up. The time has gone up. People are booked, and there aren't as many tiny house builders across the country as there are for your typical residential options.
Is it
So you're
becoming
pretty
more
limited?
Is it becoming more crowded, that space?
Yeah, and once there's really financing, so if there's a Wells Fargo, Bank of America, or anybody
Gold
else,
rush.
then you're gonna have real builders that have been around that are gonna jump into that market, right? Like and I don't see why you wouldn't. It makes sense. I
Why
would.
are you starting a finance company?
I've been working on it, man. Like it's not.
I know
this
a
is not
guy.
This is not a new idea.
There's a company called Aventus Wealth.
Yeah, I've heard
Pretty
that. There was
smart people.
Some dude.
Yeah, they know some rich dudes.
Yeah.
I mean, because realistically, anyway, sorry, there's
No,
so
I think
much
this is a
opportunity there.
fascinating
It's
conversation.
where the market needs to go.
Yes.
And whoever is the first, there are
Say
a couple
you
of
offer your own
options.
financing.
There's a couple people that they say they offer financing, but it winds up being RV financing, which is typically 5 to 7 years on a
Yeah.
note. Interest rates aren't bad. Like they'll start off at 4.5%, 5.5%, depending on who you're going through, and you're 10 to 15, 20% down, which isn't bad either. The problem is for most tiny house builders, you don't get paid until the house is built.
Yep.
So they need a construction loan.
Yep.
Right? They need something because they can't float that paper for materials and labor, even if it's just for 6 weeks. Especially now, like after COVID, right? Like it's even worse. So
Well, if you ever try to ramp up, their scale is out the window.
Yeah.
Like there is no option for that.
For sure.
the other caveat to it is for RV financing, because you can't legally live in an RV anywhere full time, you can't sell your home as a residential home. You have to sell it as an RV. So a lot of builders go and get their RVIA certification, which is basically a $6,000 bill. And you promise in your note that you sign up for with the RVIA that you will not sell a home that's going to be lived in full time.
Oh my gosh! So even the manufacturers are in on this crap.
Yeah. So they're all,
Oh.
they're like, there's just loophole after loophole. And everyone, like I said, it's still the Wild West. Like everybody's still trying to get this figured out
So how come a manufactured home can be dropped on a property and that counts?
because it's hooked up to city utilities. And even though it's on wheels, they take it off, they take the tongue off, and then they skirt it.
Have you thought about doing that?
Yeah, I have some that do that. Like park
I mean,
model
like a dump
RVs do that.
trailer? It just slides off the back.
Yeah. Just
That
comes
would be
right off the
awesome.
back of that bad boy.
Put a big old fat winch on the front. When you're ready to go, you just winch it back on.
Dude, we've done that with decks on the side of tiny homes. We put a winch on that bad boy so they'll
Really?
travel down the road with a deck built on the side so it covers the windows. And then when you get there, drop that bad boy down, unhook it, and you have a permanent deck.
See, so that would solve the problem. You wouldn't even have to take the tires off. You just drop the deck
Yeah.
down. Nobody would even know it's on
Yeah.
the trailer. Oh, loopholes. See, I dig it.
It's definitely
dig
it's
it.
crazy, man. And the more into it gets, like the more popular it gets with TV shows and everything else, the crazier it gets. Even though the code is trying to move in that direction, you only adopt the code once every 3 years.
How has nobody contacted you for a TV show or have
That
they?
was my next question.
I've actually done a couple episodes for Tiny House Nation, and I've had a few people that I've talked to about doing a TV show.
You'd be great on TV. You got the voice, the look. You're tall, like you're a nice guy.
Thank you.
Like great
so much.
story.
Yeah.
I know some people. My pilot didn't get picked up, but they were. So
Well, I can
I
guarantee
worked
you,
with
if
a
I get a
production
TV
company.
show, dude, Bam Bam's is going to be on there.
yes,
I can
I'll
guarantee
build the
that.
smokers in.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, these guys are all HGTV, travel, network, food, cooking.
Yeah, like
Anyway,
Hey Grill Hey, right?
It's yeah,
Like her show, right?
right. So we were doing a show together.
Okay.
Like it was like this close, but yeah, her show just launched, which is awesome. But yeah, I would think a production company like them would be all over what you guys are doing.
I know a few producers at HGTV. Like we've talked. It's never gotten serious because
Right.
I'm not all over the place, but I am. Right now, it's literally just my wife and I that are doing. Like I don't have a team that
see,
does
that
Instagram
in
for
and
me or anything
in
else.
of
Like, it's just,
itself is like you already have a huge following.
so you manage all your own Instagram. You do all the stuff.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
They follow me. Just happened today. I was pretty excited.
dude. I've been. Are you talking about Bam Bams?
Yeah,
Yeah,
followed you right back.
yeah.
Can't wait to build my 1,200 square
dude,
foot tiny home.
Dude, pork nachos. I'm a huge fan. Squash nachos,
Yes. All right,
Yes.
we're gonna have to do some trade. For my
So-
down payment.
What have been like the biggest learning curves? I mean, like has there been times where you just like turned out a house and was like, oh crap, that I can't even sell that.
Yeah. So for us, we were building all custom homes, right? So we weren't building any spec homes to sell. But there were definitely times where we would deliver home and then a water line would break or something would happen, right? Like something that you go through all this inspection process, you think it's perfect. And when you're building it, like, it's never perfect because you see every little thing. Every nail hole that wasn't finished nail or whatever that wasn't covered up or puttied or painted over again or whatever. But there have definitely been a few times where something has happened and we freak out because obviously the customer calls and they're upset and something has to change and we have to fly out to California or somewhere to go fix something. The hardest one was we had a home shipped to Cape Cod and the driver was sleeping in the home on the way out.
What?
He's like
broke-
DoorDash driver on steroids, eating your nachos.
He broke into the house.
Oh,
Because we didn't give him the keys, right? Like, we were not going to give the driver the keys because we have a shipping company that would ship it out there because it was 10 feet wide. It needed a pace car. It needed all kinds of special permits. He broke into the house, broke the Murphy bed desk that we had built in there because it was locked as well, so it wouldn't come down during shipping, right? So he broke the lock to pull the bed down. He shows up to drop it off to the lady because the customer was the one who was paying for half the shipping. So, and he tells her, I'm not going to give you the key to that. Like, you can't get into the house. I'm not unhooking it from my truck until you pay me. And she just paid him. And then he unhooked and bolts. She walks into the house. Murphy bed's busted. The washer dryer combo unit has fallen over on his face. There's just stuff scratched up all over the house. Like, he went berserk. I don't even know how to explain it. And she calls, obviously upset. Like, you just ordered this house. She hadn't even come out here to Utah. Like, we'd never actually seen each other face to face, but she had ordered this home, and it was a custom home. So it was
Cape Cod too. It's like you're not sending it to just Joe Schmo.
yeah,
It's wow.
Do you ship most of your houses?
yeah. This one in
So
particular,
the transport companies are loving you guys. That's a whole extra line.
it's a whole nother market that
Right.
they're just getting into, and there's a lot of people that have gotten, and it makes sense. I mean, it's one more thing that you can just hook up to and take off with.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
The bumper pole?
Yes.
No bumper pull. That's a crazy bumper pull.
It happens, but yeah.
Wow. Andrew.
That was
Bumper pull.
yep.
Can I pull that with my minivan?
I was checking the specs on the rotary girder. Just
Did I catch a niner in
We
there?
can't say the last part of that excellent line anymore.
nope.
Oh, man. Yeah, see, that's crazy that people, I mean, that is a really heavy bumper pull is when you're just, like, most of our truck hitches are just out of the bottom of the bumper, right? Yeah. A gooseneck is when it goes into the back of your pickup truck, which distributes the weight better, makes it a shorter overall pull. Like the big old food truck I have out there, that's a gooseneck, and it just makes it easier to turn and maneuver. And, I mean, generally, you don't have any bumper pull anything that are over like maybe 12,000 pounds. Usually, you switch to gooseneck, right?
Yeah.
But maybe people just don't like the look of the.
We've had a few. Like that one in particular was 30 feet long, 10 feet wide, and it was a bumper pull.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy.
Because they want that look. They want a very.
That's true, and I get that. I get that. Having that big old gooseneck out the front would kind of make it a little bit of an eyesore, but
I'm a fan of it because that gooseneck gives you a stand-up bedroom. Like you get 6.5 feet of standing room and a gooseneck.
That's a great point because you can build out over it, just like RVs do.
So you extend that deck. Normally that deck is only 7 feet long. Sometimes you'll extend that out to 8, 9, or 10 feet, depending on how much closet space or how big of a room you want. But in a loft space, you're normally maxed out at 4, maybe 4.5 feet of height. So you're still kind of crawling around in a loft space. And a gooseneck, you get 6.5 feet of standing room. Doesn't matter if it's an A-frame. It doesn't matter how you slant that roof. You can still get that. So I'm a huge fan for that reason because being not short,
right.
I like being able to stand up every once in a while. Yeah.
So when you travel, are you always traveling to little tiny home resorts?
A lot of times, yeah.
Just to check them out, see what's going on.
Yeah. So a lot of them, that was kind of the Instagram side of this whole thing was people in the very beginning, that was probably 5 years ago. When I started doing the whole tiny house movement Instagram page, it started off as just promoting my own stuff, like our own tiny homes, right? And then I realized there are so many other amazing tiny homes that people are building. I want to be able to promote those as well. And then I just went to all the builders and said, just let me do this. It's not going to cost you anything. Like, just let me do this. I'll white label it as your own still. Just let me promote it. Let me build the movement. It's kind of the idea. So everybody started sending me their pictures. And we're like, hey, this is our house. Promote it. See what you got. And people started eating it up.
Wow.
So how often are you posting your own stuff then?
A couple times a week.
Okay. So like how many houses will you kick out in 2020?
I mean, we were kind of messed over for a little bit, but our goal this year is 60 homes. Next year, because we're trying to do a lot with container homes next year for 2021 as well. We're trying to do about 300 next year.
Oh, wow.
Dang. Those containers are all the rage.
So I had a buddy, he built his office out of containers.
Mm-hmm.
I think
So
it's awesome.
he got like a huge warehouse and then got a whole bunch of old containers and just stacked them in different spots.
So cool.
And now has like his old office. Like,
How about it like
with
efficiency? So, well, let's talk about the tiny homes first. You know, insulation, efficiency. I imagine that's a pretty big factor.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big question. Depending on where you're living, those need to be rated differently.
Right.
But for most of them, we'll just build that to whatever that code needs to be for where you are. Based on what the snow load is in your region, the roof is going to be sloped to a certain degree. Most of them we try and do at a 112 or 212 pitch just to give you as much headroom as possible in the loft. But normally you wind up with an R value of 30 in the ceilings and then 15 in the walls and then 35 to 40 in the floor.
And what is standard in a home?
Residential here in Utah, there's 3 different ones depending on the area of Utah for the amount of snow load. But normally code is 14 for the walls and 30 for the ceiling and floors.
So, I mean, you're right there or
Yeah.
higher.
Uh-huh.
Wow. And in that small of a space? That's
You're
amazing.
still building with 2x4s and 2x6s for trusses
Right.
for the ceiling. The flooring, you have a 4-inch gap between the bottom of the trailer has a galvanized, like this part of the desk would be a metal pan. And then from there, you have your studs, your beams that are 16 on center that go across the trailer. So in between each one, you can use spray foam or you can use a polyiso sheet. There's lots of different insulation for that. But you fill that entire cavity to prevent that thermal bridging so the floor
Right.
never gets cold. And then you throw the subfloor down on top of that. So our values aren't that hard to get. It just all depends on where it's going as to what you want it to be.
Anybody put radiant heat in the floor yet?
Yeah, we've done that a couple times.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. That is so cool. Oh my god.
But that's why it's not always. We have some that are that are 6 figures, right, for tiny homes.
Right.
And it makes sense logically. You're like, how does somebody spend 6 figures on 400 square feet? You're like, dude, it happens
Oh,
quick.
it's easy. It could be easy.
It happens quick.
so do you ever get like the purists that say you shouldn't be doing it because you don't live in one?
Oh yeah. Oh, I get. I mean, the first question people ask, right, is like, what kind of tiny home do you live in? I don't.
But
I
those
don't
people
live in a
don't
tiny home.
shower. They usually are barefoot. They smell. Just kidding.
There's that's actually not a joke. That is
Oh,
absolutely.
it isn't a joke.
That's
I
very
totally,
real.
Totally see that.
No, there's one of the TV shows that we did. One of the hosts is a naturalist
Oh, yeah.
and did not shower. And I have no idea how his co-host.
And he was super judgmental about it too.
Like he was a cool guy. Like there wasn't anything.
that's good.
But it was definitely interesting because I'd never met anybody in person that lived their lifestyle that way. But he lives in a tiny home and is a naturalist and just that's his thing.
Wow.
And loves it. I didn't get it. I
I
have a
don't
hard time
get
with it.
like
But
why naturalists have to be smelly. Like why can't you just
he doesn't
get
shower,
in the
man.
river and take a bath? Like cowboys did it. They live out in the field.
I mean, soap's been
Right?
around for a while, right? Like
Dude, anyway, it's so funny. It's like a rite of passage to be smelly if you're a naturalist.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you probably do deal with some characters in that whole world. Of course, you're building stuff that probably helps you stay away from some of it because I think people are wanting something a little bit more. Because that's the thing. I think the tiny house thing is really cool, but it's even cooler if you don't have to sacrifice the things that we love about our homes, right?
Yeah.
Like the
Air
luxury side
conditioning.
of it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
the amenities.
Yeah.
And you can afford to have those really nice, like most people can't afford to put radiant heat in their floors,
yeah.
right?
But when you're
if you're only
flooring-
doing 500 square feet,
Yeah.
like all of a sudden you can have something that only like the rich people have, right?
Well, same thing for all the materials in your tiny home, right? Like your
Right.
countertop space, you typically have less than 15 square feet of countertop space in your tiny home. So
You
when
could
you're
go find
thinking of
like a slab somewhere and throw something
you
nice
get
in there.
remnants of
Yeah.
some awesome granite or something you want to throw in there. Like it's a little bit heavier, but it's going to hold up well. It's not going to crack.
And you
Yeah.
get that stuff just scratch and dent. Like we have an extra little piece of this kicking around that was some extra.
Yep.
And man, you can.
Same thing on flooring, man. Like if you're covering 400 square feet, and normally when you're paying $4 or $5 a square foot, that's a big deal. To cover your house.
And you bring up a good point. So I would also imagine that the materials are getting better and better for what you're doing.
Yeah.
Like you think of like Trex, you think of some of the stuff that they're coming out with that are lighter,
Like the LVP,
like
is
more
probably
element
fabulous.
proof.
LP siding.
I mean, I think of the floor that I put in here because we kind of flipped this place, and it was just that snap together laminate crap, but it has held up.
Yeah.
It's waterproof. It has had thousands upon thousands of people walking on it, and it's barbecue, so they're heavier people normally. But
And you might spell something out again.
well, yeah, and it's held up amazing. So I mean, I would imagine also the same thing goes for tiny homes. Where how do you kind of keep up with that? How do you keep up with new? And are you keeping up on?
Yeah, so that's honestly what I do the majority of the time. Like when I am on social media, besides just answering questions and comments and trying to talk to as many people as possible, the reason. So as I mentioned in the beginning, I typically try to keep my face off of everything. Like I want it to be about the homes, right? Like it's not about me.
We have somebody that would convince you otherwise of that. By the way, her name's Anna McFarland.
I do that for two reasons. One, I couldn't care less if anybody knew who I was or what it was, right? It's not about me. It's about the homes themselves. The other is I want the brand to be about the homes. And because of that, I get to spend time researching new products and new things I could put in a tiny home versus having to worry about where my face is and who I'm talking to and that kind of stuff. Like just for me, it makes sense in my head.
Devil's
to go that route.
advocate.
Yeah.
Like your story is so good, and people. I mean, that's what marketing is, right? It's this, like people want to connect to that story, and you being around so long, you're well spoken. Like you definitely have a passion about it. So I would argue. Listen, I'm talking to myself here because I really suck at it too.
I'm ready to hear what
I
you
hate
have to
it.
say.
But I mean, it's what I hear all the time. I was really surprised, like during COVID, when I really needed to get on there and explain, these kind of just trying to be creative and get the food out to people. There was really no other way to do it than me just put my fat face on there and just talk.
Yep.
But I couldn't believe how many like compliments and comments I had. That's just like, it's so nice seeing you on here. So cool what you're doing, blah, 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 blah. So maybe at least in your stories, like I think that would be so cool to see you installing something like a copper hood.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like even just stuff like that.
That thing was a pain in the butt. Having to patina that thing the right way and then installing it without scratching the whole wall up, man, that one in particular was a huge pain.
I can't.
So
imagine.
your social account, I mean, did it take off pretty quickly? I mean, because it's huge now. I mean, you're up over 600,000 people.
It's so like right now, it's gaining an average of a little over 100,000 on an annual basis. In the beginning, I did just what I had to. Like I wasn't buying followers. I still have never done any of that kind of stuff. I just wanted to collaborate with everybody that was kind of in that space. So I went and started talking to cabin pages and vacation pages, in DIY pages, outdoor pages, brands, all that kind of stuff. Just to say, hey, I want to kind of feature some of my tiny homes on your page, and I love some of the stuff you feature on yours. And basically, you're kind of doing a shout out for shout out, kind of a trade for trade, right? And that was how it grew in the very beginning. Well, it was a grind. Like it was a serious grind. I spent easily 5 hours a day just DMing people on Instagram, going through that. That was kind of the beginning of that side of it, right? So I'd be 8 to 10 hours at work, and then when I came home, get everybody in bed, spend another 4 or 5 hours doing
that
the Instagram
right there is
stuff
what
at night.
people don't realize it takes. They're like, oh, he's got a cool house. He probably does a post. Like it's,
Yeah, I mean, it's the same with anything else, right? Like your overnight success is usually a 5 or 10 year story. Right?
Yeah.
I was gonna say there's no such thing, right?
Yeah.
That's
We've
kinda how
learned
it's
that a
going.
lot on this podcast. Just these people that kind of seemingly come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Right? They have a 10-year backstory generally.
The one time I've posted something and it's taken off when I really didn't deserve anything for it was on TikTok. Like I have a house, I have a builder out of Vegas that made this prototype of this house that unfolds. Wow. And I featured it on there and it got 10 million hits, and I went from like 200 likes to 25,000 or something like that, right? Like followers, right?
TikTok is
literally
nuts.
overnight
is-
on TikTok.
You have one good video, you blow up.
It's a whole different world, man.
That was it. Literally, that was it. Like that one video, I had maybe 300 followers before that, and I woke up in the morning and it was like 4 million views or something like that. And all of a sudden, I had 20-something thousand followers, and I was like, "What do I do with this now?" Like,
Great. What do high school kids want to watch?
oh my gosh.
So what is your focus then? Are you still focused on Insta? Do you try to do all the
Yeah,
platforms?
I mean, Insta is definitely still by far bread and butter. More than half of my business, both for brand deals that we do and for just tiny homes in general, comes through Instagram. It's not even close. But I
on
branch
your
out.
Insta, like you don't even have like a website on there.
No, I have mine. It's just tinyhousemovement.co, right? But I don't. dude, I have more projects than I can handle personally, right? Like I'm not trying to promote my stuff so I can bring more stuff in the door. I'm trying to help bring some validity to the whole movement in general, to bring in things like financing and places to put tiny homes. Like that's
say that. I mean, that in and of itself is.
But that's what's so cool. I mean, there's so few people that are willing just to be giving, right? Just creating the value out there and hoping to help everybody else out.
Go-giver.
Yeah. It's weird. It's a book.
It's a book. Yes.
We'll call it bumper pull, dude.
Yeah.
We'll call it bumper pull.
Bumper pull.
We're gold.
The go-giver and the bumper puller.
Yeah.
No, we talk about the go-giver a lot. Just you add value to everybody else and it always comes back to you. Like this week, you'll have a finance company, which I'm really excited about.
Dude,
finance your own.
I've been incredibly blessed in my life. Like I didn't grow up in a hard situation. Like I grew up kind of like your American.
Bakersfield.
It was Bakersfield.
You know,
but I moved there when I was
not
6 and that was, that was it. My life was all downhill from there. But I've been incredibly lucky and blessed in my life, just kind of from every facet with that. So for me, the affordable housing side is such an enormous problem, not just in our country, in our state, but worldwide. Like people just, they can't find a place to live for a reasonable
Do you know
amount
who
of money.
we need to put together with him is Becky Pickle.
I keep thinking about it.
Have you heard of Becky Pickle?
I don't know who Becky Pickle is.
She might be the most boss.
She's like the OG.
Really?
So she's all over like the road home, right? Is that what it's called?
Yeah. She's the
in
head,
Utah.
She's the
So
head
she's
of
like
it
the
now.
president of it.
Yeah.
So she's all about
So she owns 2 or 3 Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
Which if you own
that's
2,
not a small thing.
You're a big. I mean, just to own one is a massive deal. Just to own one as a woman is a much even more massive deal. But she owns 2, and she is one of the best people that you've like. And we hadn't heard of her, but who got her in bet? Was it Betsy?
Betsy,
of course. Betsy's amazing, but yeah, like she is so passionate about homeless, helping out the homeless, and yeah, now she's over the whole thing, right? Mm-hmm. Since the whole Rio Grande thing went down, but
yeah, 2 years ago. So I've done a couple presentations for a couple of cities and planning and zoning commissions and that kind of stuff for here in Utah. And 2 years ago, I literally tried to donate a tiny home to Salt Lake City for homeless, just to have them do it, and they told me no. Because they didn't have a place that they could put it permanently.
Oh my gosh!
And I'm having this phone call, and I'm laughing. I'm like, this is a joke, right? Like you can't seriously be this dumb. Like it's a place for somebody to live. You really won't take the home. No, we can't. We don't have a place that we can put it. I can't just put it in a parking lot or something else. I'm like, I don't know how to help you guys. Like I don't know how to help you. I'm trying to give you a home, and you won't even take it.
See, I could see the containers being really cool for that. Right.
The containers are by far the easiest to mass produce.
So what is a container home?
It's taking. So I use brand new containers. I actually got hooked up with.
When you say container, what are you talking about?
Shipping container.
Okay.
So there's a couple different sizes that are standard, right? Like 20 feet long, 8 feet wide. A high cube is 9.5 feet tall versus 8 feet tall. I use a 40-foot long version of that, so it's a 40-foot high cube. And I'm having them built for that. Not taking recycled containers, used containers, because shipping containers
ship a lot of drugs.
Dude, the shadiest business I have ever seen in my entire life.
I have no doubt.
Especially when it comes to international. We wound up. I got hooked up with. You guys know Richie Norton?
Yeah. He's on the podcast.
Yeah. So I got hooked up with Richie a couple years ago at a social media convention here in Provo, and we got to talking. And the next day he showed up at my shop and was like, "Hey, so we can mass produce these in China." I was like, "Yeah, I've heard that a million times, dude. Have a nice life." Like, that's fantastic. And he's like, "No, seriously, we can do it. Just come with us to China and check it out." And I was like, "I don't want to go to China. Why would I want to go to flipping China for it, man? Like, I could see a shipping container across the parking lot. I don't need to go to China." So 2 weeks later, I was in China.
And you're talking to Richie. It's like, yeah, good.
So I'm there, and I wind up being like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. Like I walk into this place, and they're building 300 new containers a day.
Unreal.
Just in this, and this isn't even their biggest facility. This one company accounts for almost 85% of every container on the planet. They're an enormous conglomerate. And they're building container homes for Hong Kong, Australia, New Zealand, everywhere but the US, basically. Like they're just sending homes to. So we went over there.
So they're building actual homes and not just the container.
Nope. They're building homes, and they're stacking container apartments 15 stories high.
Oh, there's it. That's how you go vertical.
Yeah. With containers in particular, yeah.
Wow.
From a structural engineering standpoint, the weight load, the payload, it can handle it.
Well, that's what they're built for.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they're on ships.
Well, yeah. I mean, check out the boat that they're sent on. They're
Totally.
12 stories high. That's not a big deal.
I hadn't thought about
Like
that.
fully loaded and moving
Uh-huh.
and rocking back and forth. I mean, those things have to be super strong.
And you can build them to whatever spec you want. So the first questions they would ask are, what steel or grade do you want? How do you want it galvanized? Where do you want everything? And so we just went through and designed the first one that we brought over was mine. It came to my backyard. And right now it's a rental property down in Zion National Park.
Oh, really?
So it's just a 40-foot container home, 1 bedroom, 1 bath.
That is so funny that
Down
you
there.
can drop a freaking container on a property and rent it out. But
Yep.
I can't put a beautiful custom tiny home.
Anything on wheels, man, for some reason, it's like a whole nother ballgame.
We got to get over ourselves. Like, give me a break.
But there's a couple people that I use here in the U.S. now as well that I build container homes with. But over there, it's still the biggest problem I have with China right now. Aside from I really just don't want to, I'm not personally planning on going back to China anytime soon, as I'm sure most people are.
Why? No, I'm just kidding.
Just just not a huge fan of the color red.
Right.
Like I'm just not.
That's what I'm talking about.
But they build as many as you could possibly handle. Like they could easily build more than I could ever order.
So what's the biggest difference? Obviously, the exterior on a tiny home versus a shipping container, but on the inside, can you make them look and feel about the same?
So, I mean, the biggest difference is the container itself. It's just a hallway, right? Like it's, you have a little less as far as functionality when it gets to that. So for mine, it's just a bedroom on one end with a bathroom next to it, small hallway, and then open living room, open kitchen for kind of the other half of the home itself. And you're definitely limited in the amount of floor plan options for a container home, but the inside can look exactly like any other home.
Like it can feel just as nice with all the amenities, all that stuff.
So there's a couple things that are actually cheaper there than there are here. So for the one I built for that's a rental, I still have bamboo flooring, MDF for the walls and ceiling, granite countertops, custom cabinets, real wood in there. Like it's not, we didn't skimp on it, but it's just.
What's the cost comparison?
I can have those built literally. So the shipping is the other crazy thing. Shipping that from China to my backyard in Lehigh was $7,000.
Cool.
And I have tiny homes that I ship from here.
It only
to
cost
Florida.
you $7,000 to get that from
shipping.
China to your house.
The infrastructure for containers around the world has been around forever. So that's figured out, right? I have tiny homes. That one that the driver broke into, for example, that was $13,000 to ship to Boston from here in Utah.
Jeez.
So shipping containers, the infrastructure is in place, whether it's by rail, by boat, by truck. And he just came and dropped it. He literally did just drop it, like it slid off the back of the trailer onto my concrete pad in my backyard. And then he took off. And then same thing when he picked it up out of my backyard to take to Zion, just hooked it up to the crane on the back of his truck, put it on the exact same slide.
Jeez.
That was it. It was gone.
So are you having the whole house built in China and you're just shipping it finished, or are you bringing it here
it's literally turnkey. It shows up done. The only thing I added to mine in particular was the furniture, but cabinets, countertop, floor, everything was in.
So there's a lot of scale opportunity with that then.
Yeah.
Because you're not having the bottleneck of labor and all the stuff here.
Nothing. The only bottleneck right now is tariffs and taxes.
Thanks, Trump.
Yeah. So there are people. I can do it here as well. I have 2 different manufacturers here in the U.S. One's in Idaho and one's out east. But you can absolutely do it here.
Are those becoming more popular?
Oh yeah. As affordable housing continues to be an issue, and with the scalability of
Are
it,
they starting to stack them?
there's a project in Salt Lake. There's a company called EcoBox that's been trying to do it for a couple of years. Salt Lake's just been kind of a stick in the mud. They had some crazy fire code. They wanted to burn the container for like 25 minutes to see how long it would last. Just crazy stuff to try and get it, because they wanted to put an apartment complex in of containers.
Yeah.
And it's taken almost 3 years, I think, to get to the point that the city has finally signed off on it. And it's cost the company millions in R&D, because you have to go hire engineers and everybody else from all over the country to come in and prove what you already know, that it will last and that it'll meet code. And you can still do what you want to the outside of it. You can still put any faux material, any kind of stucco, any kind of wood, any kind of stone. You can still do whatever you want on the outside. You wouldn't even have to know it's a container.
You could even put a roof on there if you wanted to. Huh.
That's crazy.
So the containers are my favorite thing right now because of the scalability. For affordable housing projects, containers are huge.
And I might have cut you off, or I already forgot. How much average cost for that?
The retail on those are like 65
Okay.
on a 40-foot container. So 320 square feet
Okay.
for a 40-foot container.
Man, I'm thinking like from a humanitarian thing, imagine going to like, I serve my mission in El Salvador.
Okay.
And it's all just like land. Think of going in there and just dropping a bunch of those down there. Just
Yep.
little, I mean, they're already living in tiny, tiny areas.
Right.
I feel like that
Well,
would
that's
be
big for some of them. I mean, think about it, square
Yeah.
footage wise.
That's what I'm saying. He could do 3 of those, or at least a half, right? 20 foot would be more than enough space.
And what do you do to make those more efficient as far as insulation, things like that?
So those, you still frame out the interior. You can frame the exterior if you want. It all kind of depends on how you want the exterior to look. But you still frame them out with 2x4s with studs. I typically use metal studs, so they're extruded studs. And then you do a spray foam insulation
Wow.
for that. So you can still do whatever R values you want, depending on where it's going.
That's crazy. Yeah, like snow, no problem.
Yeah. Dude, I had that in my backyard in Lehigh for the winter. That was, it just went down to Zion's in April. Yeah, I think in April. So from November to April, it was in my backyard. I didn't have any problems with it.
That's crazy that, so you pay 7 G's from China and it's still way cheaper than you could do it here.
Yeah, like the whole home itself finished from China was less than 40 grand and then 7 grand to ship.
Oh my gosh.
That's awesome.
It is awesome, but it's like, why can't we figure that out? Like why, like we're paying $7,000 to ship it over here and it's still thousands cheaper.
Yeah.
At the end of the day than just building it right here. That's nuts.
What did you have to own in Zion's to drop it on there?
So I have a partner down there that I promote. He has a tiny house community, rentals.
Okay.
They're all down there. And he has, I think, 4 different properties. So he's got, I think, 60 different types of tiny homes that are down there that he rents out. So he's basically renting it out for me
Okay.
while he's down there. And
then once that's there, like, will you move it again or will you just keep it there?
my plan is to keep it there. It can be moved again. I mean, it's as simple as right now it would take a crane, pick it up, because I went and put it on skids down there in a couple of cinder blocks. But it's not hard to do. It's less than a 1 day process to pick that thing up, put it on a truck, and leave again.
What is a way safer investment, right?
Yeah.
I think of like boom towns, like Vernal.
Yeah.
They find natural gas. Or like Rock Springs, Wyoming. All of a sudden, you just like the pipeline
Dakotas,
going through, right? Like, yeah. I mean, how cool is it? And I think, like, I love Gold Rush. I watch that show all the time.
Yep.
And I feel like a lot of the like offices and stuff on the mines are containers.
Yeah, those mining camps are really, really similar.
Because you have the permanent. I mean, you could leave it there forever. It can handle the winter, all that stuff, but it's still movable.
Yeah, pick it up, take off with it wherever you want.
So I mean, you could pick a great summer spot, move it for the winter. Man, sky is the limit with those, and they don't have those icky things called tires, so you can put them wherever you want.
They're not super dangerous, right? They don't have tires on them.
So what's next? I mean, what kind of gets you excited? Is it more like like facilitating
Financing.
is that kind of the focus?
Financing is a huge. The two things I'm focused on right now, more than anything else, are the financing and affordable housing project.
We won't get him on the podcast once he gets that financing thing figured out. He'll be on a whole new plane.
Dude, whoever.
Yep.
I'll tell you this: whoever does, because I've got numbers from every builder across the country. I've been working on it for a while. The market right now, just for the top 15 builders that aren't mom and pop, they're licensed and bonded, they're doing what they're supposed to. There's easily $100 million worth of loans right now, just between those 15 builders.
Jeez.
And that's not even to mention who's going to come to the market once it's a little more legitimatized, which isn't even a word, I don't think. Once it's a little more legit, whatever you want to call it.
And these are all like probably very qualified people because they're paying cash for.
Well, that's
dude, the demographics.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Well, I was going to say, like, not to be rude, but it's a very different demographic than someone who's buying an RV or someone who's buying a trailer.
Sometimes
You know what I mean?
These are. I have people that have been. They've brought a pre-approval to me for a residential home that they qualify for a $500,000 mortgage. Can't get a $70,000 loan for a tiny home.
That's great.
Our lending system, our whole banking system is so dumb.
Just because they don't have a box they can check. Like they have no idea what it's worth. And if it's a custom one, it's not something they can just go buy off the lot like an RV, right? Like if you're going to build a custom home, they consider it a custom home, even if it's on wheels.
I'm going to figure this out.
So the first bank to have the balls to say we have tiny home financing
Yeah.
just becomes
There's,
a nationally recognized.
I mean, whoever does,
Everyone would use them.
Well,
Yes.
and since there's no one out there, you could put your requirements. You could define your buyer to be like the absolute best buyer, and it would still be a fantastic business.
yes,
That's wild.
there are people right now that are trying to do it. They just haven't figured out a way. They're going to try to get every builder signed up versus worrying about who the customer is and what that process looks like. They supposedly have the funds, but then when I talk to the builders about the customers they've taken through the ringer, they won't ever go back. I mean, they won't go back to the lender because they require way too much paperwork. They won't get back to the people. They won't process the loan fast enough, so people are looking elsewhere to go get a loan anyway. I mean, it's your typical, just a horrible customer service that they won't go do it. The added benefit I have is I have the marketing built in. Like, for going and getting that set up, if I throw that out tomorrow that I have legitimate tiny house financing and I'll go pick whoever builders I want to be a part of that, I mean, it's, it's for lack of a better term, it's a monopoly that could be on the marketplace.
So if any bankers are listening right now, pull your head out.
No, shut up. I'm going to figure it out.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Never mind.
No, I got this.
Turn it off. Turn your volume down. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, it just seems like a totally untapped market. Like that would, wow.
Well, and here's the thing. Sorry, I just can't stop thinking about this. You can baby step into it. You don't have to show up with $100 million.
No.
You can baby step into a couple $1 million. You're going to get the loans. You're going to get the processes down. You're going to figure out how it's going to go. That's not difficult.
Why hasn't somebody gone on Shark Tank with just the financing side?
So I've talked to a couple of different groups about it. The biggest question they typically have is, what is that note going to be worth? Because they want to be able to sell it in a couple of years, right? Just like you would with the mortgage or anything else. They want to be able to sell that note. The biggest question I have personally is, it's not like repossessing a car if somebody doesn't pay. You can't just roll up to this thing and hook it up to your truck and take off because somebody could be living inside, right? So that to me is the biggest question mark.
You evict them just like you do a house.
Right. But when it's on wheels, somebody could also take off with it. So how to effectively have that process? I'm
gonna say, I would think repossessing these would be kind of easy.
I've done 5 personally, just on homes that I've built for people that I've done loans for.
Have you really?
And I've never had a single late payment, anything. They've all been paid off early. They've all been phenomenal.
Oh, I thought you meant you repossessed
That's what I
5.
thought.
No. I haven't.
Like, that's another TV show.
Yeah, dude. If you want to start a tiny house repo show, I'm all in.
Oh man,
I am all in on
I
that.
could buy a big old truck.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
Dog the bounty hunter.
Yes. Yes.
Tiny house repossessor.
We'll go get the Rock, and he'll be the one that shows
Oh
up somebody's door.
I love it.
But yeah, like the financing side has been, the few that I've done personally have been phenomenal, which I can't imagine is the case. I don't know what that percentage really is as to what the fail rate might be, right? But right now, because of the demographics on who is looking for tiny homes, who wants to purchase it, I mean, there's not a better demographic of people that are looking for loans, especially at sub 100K.
Right. Well, a lot of them are putting them on second properties probably.
Yeah.
And renting them out and everything. I mean, a lot of these.
It's like what buying fourplexes or duplexes used to be.
Yeah.
Like you used, go live in one,
Right.
while you're renting out the other 3 or the other 4.
Right.
Pays off everything for you.
This is awesome.
So
I can't
cool.
stop thinking right now.
Well, I mean, what a cool way to pay for some property, right?
Yeah.
Buy 10 acres somewhere beautiful, like Star Valley, where land is still pretty cheap, right? And put, like you said, buy 4 or 5 acres, put a container per acre.
Yeah.
And live in one and just Airbnb the rest.
1 per acre, dude. You could sack.
Listen, I'm a little higher end. Okay, Andrew. I like my space. All right. I don't want to see other containers on my acre. But I'm just saying, I mean, what would a cabin cost, on that property, right? It'd be double the price of 5 of these container homes or tiny homes. And plus the fact that you can move them, it's kind of like food trucks, right? One of the coolest upsides of the food truck is you're not stuck in a spot that who knows what may happen, right? If every business around here closes down, or if a road diverts somewhere else and people stop using State Street, you're not at the mercy of your surroundings. If it's not working out, you can latch on and put it somewhere else.
Especially if it is a rental. Like if you have, I would think companies that have larger holdings and have properties all over the country, right? If it's seasonal, So like Bear Lake, for example, right? Like if you just want a cabin in the summer, throw one up there for 3 or 4 months. And then if you want to go head down to Zion's for the winter.
What about for things like Sturgis, right? Or like big golf tournament, like the Masters, where people rent homes out for a week?
Oh, dude, there was I actually got hit up by.
It's moving these around to like big events where people, rent homes for the week.
Yeah.
Like I could also see it being really cool for that because that's a huge advantage. You can actually move them.
It's also a unique place to stay, which is why it's such a big deal, I think, on social media, like Instagram in particular, is
True.
because people
It's
see it, they're
great
just
content.
like, oh, I want to be able to say I've stayed in a tiny house.
Yeah.
I want to have that experience, which I recommend for anybody, especially if you're going to try to live in a tiny home, go stay in one for a week.
Yeah.
Go try it for a week, see if you can really handle that, because it is different, especially if there's more than one person. Fitting in a galley kitchen, walking side by side when it's 7 feet wide on the finished interior, and you're having to haul stuff around or whatever. Like just any little thing like that. Go try it out for a week.
Normally, like, who are the people? Is it just a couple typically that lives in it? Like, how often are you seeing families living in them?
Yeah, the normal demographics are kind of opposite ends of the spectrum. So usually it's younger couples that are just starting out, don't know where they want to finish school or what they want to do for work yet, and they don't want to be tied down and spend $300,000 on a starter home when they don't even know where they want to live.
Yeah.
And then it's the opposite end. It's the baby boomers that just don't want the maintenance of the yard or the house anymore and want to be able to travel. We do have a few that we built for families that have 2 or 3 kids, but that's definitely a smaller part of the market than
That'd be so hard.
than just couples. And then most of those people usually have 2 or 3 pets. Like pets are huge for tiny homes. People love to be able to travel outdoors and have their dogs or cats. Like we did one for a lady that we built on what she called a catio under her gooseneck, under that fifth wheel section.
Oh my gosh.
We had to build a full section so her cats could run in and out of the house because she had like 8 cats. She was that lady. So we had to have a catwalk from one loft to the other, which I thought was a nightmare because she wanted it enclosed because she didn't want the cats to be able to fall off. I was like, what happens if a cat gets stuck in there or dies in there, like spanning that 15 feet? She's like, I'll figure it out.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, look, however, you're living in that thing, whatever. But people ask for some crazy stuff for their pets.
A catio.
Yeah.
Wild.
Pass.
Hard pass.
Pass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, ski resorts, sky really is the limit on these things.
Dude, anywhere you can get, especially containers, anywhere you can get a 40-foot truck, a semi to drop something off, you can put a container house.
Wow.
So where can people find, like people listening, if they're interested, where do you want them to go? What do you want them to do?
I would say you can either hit me up on Instagram, just Tiny House Movement is the page, and you can just DM me there. Or you can go to the website, just tinyhousemovement.co. And I go through all that stuff personally. It's literally just me and my wife that do that. So there's not, you're not going to have to wait on hold.
That's the one question I didn't ask. Like, were you married when you started this?
Uh-huh.
How did that conversation go? We're backtracking a little bit, but I'm surprised we didn't ask that question. We talked about the in-laws and how they felt, but how did the boss feel?
She was phenomenal and still is. She's known from when we dated. I had more of I guess you can call it an entrepreneurial type mindset, right? Like working for somebody else wasn't going to be my thing long term.
Right.
Even when I was at Vivint, like I still had to have something else that I was doing just because I needed to be in control of my time a little more.
Right.
So she was supportive and she was on board, but she definitely thought I was crazy. I mean, doing something like that was so out of left
Did you
field.
have any kids at the time?
Yeah, we had all 4 of her. No, not all 4. We had 3 of our 4.
Wow.
At that point. So my kids are 15, 13, 8, and 5.
Wow. I love it.
I mean, 3 kids married and just jumps
Yep.
head first into an industry that doesn't exist, still barely exists, never built a house before. What a cool story.
Very cool story.
Oh my gosh.
It's been a lot of fun, man. It's definitely been crazy. There's no question. And I'm sure there's a lot more crazy ahead, but it's a lot of fun.
Well, it's evolving like crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be so different probably just a year or 2 from now.
Well, I can't wait till you have to invite us back because we have our financing deal figured out.
Don't be leaving me in the dust on this. This is ridiculous. I know people. Well, I just want a man cave. Anybody ever buy them for that?
Yeah, we've had a couple.
Just like an Xbox tiny house.
Uh-huh.
That's what I'm talking about.
The original one was a hunting, like it was just for him to bug out a couple times a year to go hunting at. So he had
No
his
way.
TV set up there and his poker table in there. Just him and a couple of his boys that he wanted to go hunting with.
Did you do a container house in your backyard? It's just like your man cave.
Yeah.
What a cool ooh. Okay.
It would be awesome. I'd have 3 AC units. So you keep it like 62.
Yep.
Oh, man.
All right, man. Well, dude, this was awesome.
So
Yeah,
cool.
thank you guys for having me, man.
No, thank you
come
for
back
coming on.
whenever you want. We need to do a tour of the facility. I would love to go see how some of that
Yeah,
stuff is done.
where are you building them here?
I don't have them here, right? Like I don't
Okay.
have. I sold my building
Okay.
2 years ago here locally. So my manufacturing's out of Idaho and Alabama right now.
Got it.
You're
Cool.
just a facilitator, man. You're all over the place.
I am all over the place.
I love it.
ADD is kind of my thing.
Hey, you and me both, man. I
Yep.
knew there was, like I said with Tim, a spark, right? He didn't like that so much. But no, I mean, it's such a cool story. And this was the whole reason we started the podcast, was stuff like this. I mean, risk, diving in, have no clue, learn as you go.
Yeah.
And it's just another example of people, like, if you have some harebrained idea, like,
Go for it.
go for it. Because if you love it, it's going to turn into something just like this did. You
Dude,
know?
the biggest thing I figured out is that nobody had, like, once I got into it, I was definitely really shy about it, right? Like, I did not know for a fact this was going to work out.
It's just like the banks. You
But
don't
I-
know what
I-
box to check off,
Yep.
right? I don't
But
know
I-
how to tell people.
I quickly realized nobody has any idea what they're doing. Like, when you're starting a business, right? Like, you're trying to figure it out
Amen.
as you're running.
Nobody does.
It took me a while to figure that out, but once I
I can
did,
testify to that. I jumped into an 80% failure rate business.
Anybody
Right?
can. Yeah.
And if I can do it, anybody can do it.
yeah.
It's very true. I mean, you can, especially now, because there's so many resources with YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing what you can learn to do on YouTube. And then it's just experience, right? It's just the more you do it, the more you don't even have to think about it.
And that's the key. The more you do it, because you have to do something. Like you have to start.
Right.
You have to try that first one. You have to.
Yeah, keep
You know.
going. I mean, you're going to fail. It's just a part of that business. I mean, even social media in general, right? Like you could start a YouTube page or a YouTube channel or an Instagram page or any other platform and fail. It could take a while to take off, but the minute it takes off, it's all worth it.
Yeah.
For sure. Have you thought about doing Sprinter vans? Because that seems to be the other big.
I've actually looked into. I've rented a couple and drove.
Man,
Like
they're
I've taken a
cool.
family around. They're awesome.
Right.
Just for me, like I'm not going to hit the road by myself on going that road trip.
Right. I could just see, like, with what you're building now,
Yeah.
it just seemed it would be like a natural.
Yeah, on that chassis, it can absolutely be done. There's a few people doing that, and they're building some awesome ones.
Right. I feel like that's a pretty
I saw one on the Prophet.
popular thing right now, is
Yeah.
because you can get those things pretty cheap. They can tow. Like you said, they've got heavy payload. They're
Yeah.
tall. But, man, I would think your facility, that would be a very natural and easy thing to do.
Yeah, we've had a couple that have hit us
As
up
if you
for
need
bus
more to do
conversions
that.
Yeah.
or
Right.
anything else. Right? Like, I mean, there's all kinds of anything on wheels.
Right. There was a
People
big
wanna find a
national
way to do
story yesterday about a school bus. Did you see that? This guy DIY'd it. I think it was on KSL. He bought an old school bus,
Oh yeah,
and it was pretty cool. I mean, it was pretty impressive. But I mean, you're right. Anything on wheels, anyway. Such a cool episode. Such a great story. Hope everybody needs to follow you. But thanks for coming.
yeah. Thank
Probably
you
already
again for
are.
having me, man.